I'm going to present you further on evaluation that we have conducted in 2021. The evaluation was commissioned by UNICEF Europe and Central Asia Regional Office, and it was conducted by ProfeedCOURSE Quality Research and Support. The team leader of the evaluation was Laura Trofin, and together I and Robert Petraru, your colleague there, participated to this evaluation. It was a multi-country program evaluation. As I told you, the evaluation was focused on the country programs implemented between 2018 and 2022 in 4 countries: Republic of Moldova, Bulgaria, Ukraine, and Kyrgyzstan. The evaluation was meant to be a strategic exercise, and by its end, it was indeed. Besides its accountability purposes, it also had a learning purpose, because the evaluation was used for the upcoming programming period in order to provide input for the next country programs for the 4 countries that were covered in the evaluation exercise. In regards with its objectives, the evaluation, first of all, aims to assess the linkages between international, regional, national, and institutional strategies, and the extent to which the country programs or each country program managed to adapt the intervention to the national context. Also, the evaluation wanted to assess the extent to which the activities conducted by UNICEF were focused and managed to deliver results for most vulnerable children, this being the aim, the core aim of UNICEF activities. And furthermore, the evaluation wanted to see the extent to which performance monitoring systems were in place at national level, but also at the level of UNICEF, in order to provide evidence, data regarding the results of the program, and also regarding the measurement of horizontal issues. So the evaluation was focused pretty much on the availability of evidences that came from monitoring systems at national level, but also at the level of UNICEF. Regarding the structure of the evaluation, as in any evaluation, yes, I have to speak louder, even louder.
No, I think I need a microphone. Just a second, because this, every time when we make this kind of presentation, like the objective of this evaluation is this and this and this, it seems so artificial. And somehow, I'm not all the time sure that the message gets to you, what actually was intended with this evaluation. Was this kind of slide clear to you? Do you have an idea about the fact that the strategic evaluation, there's a lot of evaluation questions? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, you can continue, and I will not.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. So to continue, the first phase of the evaluation, as in each evaluation contract, was the inception phase. In this case, this phase was lengthier than usually. Besides preliminary desk research and the kickoff meeting and the development of the methodology and its details and data collection instruments. In this case, we conducted and organized several meetings with the regional office and also with the country offices from the 4 addressed countries, in order to align our perspectives regarding the objectives of the evaluation and regarding the extent and the way through which we were meant to apply the analysis conducted under the impact assessment. I'm going to explain you further this process, because it was very important when applying process tracing. Further, we started the data collection phase. Here we conducted surveys, interviews, and focus groups. And in the data analysis and reporting phase, we used process tracing, as I previously mentioned, contribution analysis, realist evaluation, and also social network analysis and QCA if you know about this method, the qualitative comparative analysis. So it was a very complex evaluation. And further, I'm going to present you only one limited, very small part of the evaluation, because I want to show you how we applied process tracing, a specific method of theory-based evaluation. The evaluation covered mainly three evaluation criteria: relevance, coherence, and impact, and sustainability, but to a lesser extent, because the programs were still in the implementation phase when we conducted the evaluation, and it was a little bit difficult to also assess the sustainability when even some results, some planned results, weren't achieved yet. In regards with the levels for which we have conducted this analysis, for relevance and coherence, we have conducted the analysis at the level of country level and strategy level. UNICEF is applying a set of distinct strategies in each country program. I just wanted to show you some examples here, like fostering innovation and advocacy for children, also leveraging resources to the development of partnerships for children, modeling. This is a key strategy used by UNICEF in each of its country programs, through which UNICEF is developing pilots, interventions. UNICEF wants to gather data regarding the effectiveness of those actions in order to be able to conduct advocacy activities further based on the evidence that they have collected, and winning support for the cause of children from decision makers and wider public. And here, of course, is this activity is related to the communication activities that are conducted by UNICEF. In regards with the impact of the 4 country programs, we have conducted our analysis at country level, area level, and strategy level. So as you can see here, we added the area level because we wanted to assess the extent to which UNICEF managed to produce change at scale. So the results that were planned in some particular areas or not achieved at the moment when we were conducting the evaluation. I included here just for you to see if you will have the chance to open again the presentation, the connection between the level of analysis and the evaluation criteria. As you can see, country level, area level, and strategy level, where we developed case studies, and impact and sustainability, but sustainability to a lesser extent, relevance, and coherence. Now we can go to the subject of the training school, theory-based evaluation, which was the overarching approach of this evaluation tool. As I think you already know, theory-based evaluation is an approach in which attention is paid to the planned theory of change, thus the logical explanation of how the planned interventions will generate or have already generated the expected change. In this context, we have applied, especially for the impact criteria, process tracing and contribution analysis. Those two methods brought added value to the results of the evaluation because they pay special attention on how the interventions have been adapted to the context. This was one key issue for UNICEF. They wanted to find out, first of all, to what extent the national context and the context in which area that we have assessed influenced the effectiveness of the programs. And on the other way, they wanted to see if during the implementation of the programs, UNICEF or the country offices managed to adapt and adjust the interventions to the changing context. Now, just to make a brief distinction between the two methods that we have used, process tracing is investigating causal inference by assessing the validity of each claim within a result chain, which is part of a broader theory of change. So process tracing is focused on evidence that we can gather and analyze for each claim, or claim meaning each expected result within the result chain. While contribution analysis, it's more focused on testing the causal links between the elements within theory of change. So it's looking to see if the actual theory of change in reality was validated or not. Now, going back to the impact areas that we needed to select in order to apply process tracing. These steps that you are seeing here are the steps that we conducted during the inception phase of the evaluation. First of all, we had to develop the methodology, the purpose regarding the in-depth analysis of some particular impact areas. We selected some impact areas where results at scale or change at scale was expected to be generated based on the theory of change and country programs, and where at the moment when we conducted the evaluation, they should have been visible. So the results should have been already visible. Because if we selected other areas that were in inception phase, initiation phase, we couldn't have available enough evidence in order to test the existence of those results that should have been achieved. Further, we developed, based on document review, the theory of change for each country program. We proposed, based on the available data, preliminary areas to be in-depth analyzed. For each country, we identified 2 or 3 impact areas. And after this, we organized with each country office workshops in order to discuss the impact areas, to discuss the availability of administrative data for these areas, the progress that country offices was achieved by each country office, and our perspective regarding the final result or the final expected change, in order to be sure that our perspective is aligned with their perspective, which is presented in program documents. After the workshop, we drafted the conclusions, and also we developed the theory of change for each impact area, and we validated them again, also with the country offices and with the regional office of UNICEF from Europe and Central Asia. And now just briefly to tell you how we did this process of selecting the impact areas. First of all, we defined results at scale, which means change produced in behaviors and attitudes at the level of target groups. Also in institutional strengthening, in regards with institutional strengthening in policy environment and in financing for children. And regarding the criteria, selection criteria that we have used, first of all, we look at the financial resources utilized in that area, not only allocated by UNICEF, but also allocated by other partners that were involved in the actions implemented by UNICEF. And here I'm not thinking only about NGOs, but also about the government, ministries, and local public authorities. The progress in achieving outcome targets at the level of each country program, overall progress in that area in the country, to see if there was an evolution of the area in the past 3 years, and the contribution of UNICEF to that evolution based on the theory of change. And of course, as I told you, process tracing and contribution analysis are based very much on the quality of evidence. So we needed to see if evidence were available besides those that we collected from stakeholders. The final result of this process, which was included in the inception report of the evaluation, was this matrix. I want to mention that, to emphasize again, that this is only a small part of the evaluation, the part that was focused on the impact area, the analysis of the impact areas. We have selected 3 areas for Bulgaria, Moldova, and Ukraine, and only 2 areas for Kyrgyzstan. And you can see there in the matrix below each area, we included the method that we were supposed to use in order to analyze the extent to which UNICEF managed to generate the expected impact in that area. Some examples are early childhood development, inclusive education, or contribution analysis, immunization in the case of Ukraine, and adolescents and youth participation and empowerment. We selected for the presentation for today the case of country program of Bulgaria and the impact area child protection, violence against children. As I told you, we developed the theory of change for this impact area. I can show you here, we included the strategies that are used by UNICEF in Bulgaria in regards with the protection from violence against children. From violence against children. The strategy used here were winning support for the cause of children from decision makers and the wider public, also fostering innovation in programming and advocacy for children, using the power of evidence to drive change for children. And here is the modeling component that is usually used by UNICEF through piloting to a small extent interventions that are aimed to be further scaled up, and developing and leveraging resources and partnerships for children. In regards with the expected short-term changes based on the theory of change of the country program, we have included here supporting the development of Social Service Act and its implementation regulations. All of these results that are included here are also included in the program documents. Drafting action plan for implementation of the national strategy for reduction of poverty 2030 and in Bulgaria, and also human resources development program for increased funding to be allocated for violence and prevention and response programs and services in this area. Building and disseminating evidence based on children in conflict with the law and child victims of violence, strengthening capacity and coordination among UN partners, academia, and civil society organizations, and developing models like child advocacy centers and safe school programs stepped together. The theory behind this scheme says that if all of these short-term changes were achieved or produced, then the medium-term changes would appear. They refer to national and local policy strengthening with regards to prevention and protection against violence, cross-sector coordination, and a larger number of children and parents benefiting from integrated services for prevention and response to violence against children. And the final effect of the program that was expected, access to justice for children and victims in Bulgaria improved. We have also included here in this theory of change some assumptions and also risks and bottlenecks. It is important to mention that, as I told you previously, we conducted the evaluation during 2021, and the effects of COVID-19 were very obvious at that moment, and they still are in this area, of course. So we included here the fact that COVID-19 impact had an important impact on the emotional development of children and mental health, and also that lockdown periods impacted and generated an impact and led to an increased violence against children, which are very important effects that could have decreased the results of UNICEF actions in Bulgaria in this area. So based on the theory of change, we have developed this result chain, which includes all the results, short-term changes and medium-term changes that should have been achieved through the contribution of UNICEF. From 1 to 5, we have here the short-term results, and then from 6 to 8, we have included the long-term effects. And if all of them have been achieved, have been generated, then the final effect of the program, the final result expected, should have been also achieved. Now I would like to tell you a little bit about how we applied process tracing. Process tracing is a systematized qualitative analysis method. This method is tracking evidence of each claim in the causal chain. So process tracing rests on the belief that all processes, if correctly identified and specified, and here this depends on the quality of the theory of change and result chain, would show empirical manifestation that, if observed, would increase the confidence on its existence. So further, I'm going to translate this phrase for you based on the steps that we have taken when analyzing the evidences that we had at disposal. As you already seen, we have developed the result claim included there, all results that were expected based on the country program. Then for each claim, we have given a score of 0.5 prior confidence, which means a medium level of confidence regarding the existence of each result in the result claim. The interval is between 0 and 1. 0 means the least level of confidence, and 1 the highest level of confidence. Then the analysis, what process tracing is doing, is focusing on increasing the level of confidence on each result included in the result claim based on the assessment of relevant evidences. As you can imagine, the quality of evidences is very important in this process. It's important to access reliable evidence and also to triangulate data sources. And I think it's important to mention that the information collected from interviews, from focus groups, or qualitative information collected from the stakeholder, it's ideally to be supported by written documents. Therefore, stakeholders should be asked usually in this process to provide also or indicate written evidence for their statements in order to increase the validity of the collected data and perspectives. Further, after we collected all the necessary data, by analyzing them, we gave other two scores for other two indicators, the certainty level, sensitivity, which refers to the strength of the existing evidence, indicating the truth value of the hypothesis, and also type 1 error, which refers to the probability of seeing the same evidence if the hypothesis was false. And this happens, the type 1 error score increases usually when we have less evidence, or we cannot collect evidence for more than one source, so we cannot triangulate. So if we don't have a disposal and there's no study on this area or on the subject that we are assessing, or when there are no administrative data, monitoring administrative data, and we only collect perspective from stakeholders, of course, they might be biased and they should be triangulated with other data sources. This is the assessment that we had to do, and I will show further for each result claim. As I told you, we gave the initial score, prior confidence 0.5. Then this is just an example. Then for the certainty, we gave a score of 0.95, and regarding the uniqueness, 0.4. After assessing each claim based on the available evidence, we need to calculate the posterior confidence. The posterior confidence is calculated based on the Bayesian theorem, which is used to determine conditional probability. It allows us to calculate the conditional probability of an event, A, in this case, change address in the result chain, occurring based on prior knowledge of conditions that might be related to the event. And here we refer to the evidence on the relevant processes that were conducted. How we interpret this score that we get at the end of each analysis that we make. So if the value of the posterior confidence is between 0.5 and 0.6, we say only that we are more confident than not that that result happened in reality. If we go further and we receive a score between 0.61 and 0.7, we can say that we are only cautiously confident in the existence of that result. And we go further to confident, highly confident, and reasonable certain when the value that we receive is higher than 0.96. So we did this process for each claim in the result claim. And at the end, we had a section in the report like this one, where we included the conclusion. After the analysis, we included the conclusion that we reached after each analysis. I have included here the conclusions for each claim in the result claim, just for you to see how they looked. And I don't know, I will choose one claim. Just a second. I don't think it's one claim to show you how we analyzed it in the end. So this was claim number 2. It referred to UNICEF contribution to national and local policies strengthening with regards to prevention and protection against violence. So of course, prior confidence level was 0.5. Then, based on the evidence that we have collected, we considered that the sensitivity value was 0.9. And because we were able to gather a lot of evidence and to triangulate among data sources, we thought that for type 1 error, we can give 0.3. After calculating in the posterior probability, we received a score of 0.75. And we said that in the count of the available evidence, we can be confident that the hypothesis of UNICEF contributing to national and local policies strengthening with regards to prevention and protection against violence is true. This we did for each, and you can see, you can look in the PowerPoint after we are going to send it to you, what were our conclusions for each result claim. We can also share with you the report of the this analysis was included in the annexes of the report as case studies. So we can also share with you the entire analysis for a case to see how we tested each claim and analyzed the available evidences. And now I wanted to show you the summarized conclusions. We included in a common table the results that we received for each claim in the result chain. And as you can see, we have here only one claim, claim number 4. UNICEF has contributed to a strengthened capacity, coordination and synergies between UN partners, academia, and civil society organizations with a level of confidence of very high level of confidence of 0.95. We also have, I'm sorry, here claim number 5. UNICEF has contributed to building and disseminating evidence-based, also with a high level of confidence. But we had here also results that were not so good from our perspective. Claim number 1, UNICEF has contributed to models, testing, and scaling up, which had a posterior level of confidence of 0.6. So we could be only cautiously confident that this happened. And here is the example how we drafted the conclusion regarding this case study, the entire area that was analyzed based on the results. So it's important for you to know that the final conclusion of process tracing analysis it's based on the weakest claim or weakest level of confidence between the claims within the result chain. The claim with the weakest score was cross-sector coordination for children protection from violence has been improved with a posterior of 0.63. So we could say that overall the result chain as explained by us and as drafted in the program documents we can be cautiously confident that the entire result chain was valid and was proven to be true in reality when the after the implementation of these activities was finalized. I think it was important also to highlight that not all claims had a low level of confidence. We also included in the report that results for which we were pretty certain that they were happening and they were happening with the contribution of UNICEF. It's important to make the distinctions between these results, and this is why the evaluation also provided an important input for UNICEF for the following programming period, because they knew where to continue activities and where the activities have already generated some expected impacts or changes. And this was what I wanted to present you regarding the process tracing method. Now that you saw how it is done and how we done it within this evaluation, I have a question for you. What do you think that were the most important limitations or bottlenecks that we have encountered when conducting this process?
What do you think of that? Very interesting. I like the description of it. Can you hear me?
Not very good. Not very good. So
Can we put maybe the microphone on the table? Maybe it's better anyway.
Yeah,
Maybe it's better now. Is it better now? We couldn't hear.
sorry, I can hear you better. Now I can hear you better.
That's perfect. I was saying that I like the description of the process tracing. That's a very interesting method. If I understood correctly, the weights for both components were assigned by the experts, right? By evaluators. Is that so?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So that's both strengths and bottlenecks.
Yes, indeed. I agree with you, and of course, I also consider that this was one of the bottlenecks that we have encountered during this process, because as you already saw, we had analyzed, I think, 12 impact areas, 11 impact areas, and we were, I think, 4 or 5 experts involved in this process. So at the end, we had to discuss among ourselves and align our perspectives in order to rate, to give values or for that indicators on similar criteria.
Exactly, that's what I would think. If it's all done by the same person
and there is no expectation of replication or scale up further on, it could be fine given the expertise of this person. But if you do it in a team, then it's just you need some safeguards to make sure that like the scores are harmonized and that the approach is understood. Or if you want to repeat it later, then you have to have a very clear methodology documented.
Yes, of course, we went through this process, and before maybe Laura can tell us more about this. Before starting to apply process tracing, we had several meetings with the methodology expert from UNICEF regional office, who explained us a little bit what are their expectations. We had several workshops for preparing the entire process.
We basically have an internal training with all the experts involved. Because we have 3 layers of experts, because the university experts and country experts. So and everybody has to be internally trained, because actually the leadership was doing that for the first time, and we were doing that not necessarily for the first time. We had some experience, but we really wanted to do it very, very thoroughly, and that's why we had that discussion with Barbara Befani, who's actually, maybe you know her. I mean, she is the one who actually, I think she invented process tracing, Barbara.
I'm not sure.
She's she's just the kind of, she brought more life to, she kind of took it to, I don't know, she made it more famous. But PCA should also, I'm not sure. So, yeah, we had to pay a lot of it, but in the end, for me, this was not, for me, this was not the biggest challenge in the end, in this entire evaluation. Yeah.
So I don't know, do you have any ideas on limitations, bottlenecks?
I have one, but it's more related to social science approach to process tracing, and deals mainly with which events or happening you chose to be the first one after which you start to follow the process. So it somehow disregards the whole context before. So that's one of the problems I encountered while doing some process tracing research. Who is the one who decides which event happens the first, upon which the analysis depends.
Laura, maybe you can answer, because I didn't get the entire question.
So I think in evaluation, things are a little bit more simple, let's say, are simpler, because you have a problem which you evaluate, and that problem started exactly like it started in 2017 or in 2015, and ideally, while having the M&E system of the problem, you have already some indicators with some baselines. Either you have it in the system or you collect it yourself. Sometimes you don't have all the data you need. But and you also already in the problem, you have like activities which are basically your interventions. So you have a pretty clear starting point. I said pretty clear starting point, because you know the year, you know the activities, you might have some baselines, not all of them, but this is a bit predetermined actually in evaluation.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So yeah, I think it's easier. It's easier for us.
But do you, as in theory of change, have this, you leave certain space for contingencies to happen, and context before starting of the project? I think it's more paid attention to in this theory of change we talked about than in this process tracing methodology. Or if you understood
I
that.
understood you very correctly, and I have a similar comment. Probably it would be a good idea to look at theory of change and then see for example, the number of children were not significant. consciously changed in your result? Can you go back to the result?
Here?
The weakest, yeah. The other slide. The other slide, the next slide, yeah. We can be only cautiously confident. So you are cautiously confident that the project contributed the number of children benefiting. How can you explain that with theory of change? What may be the underlying reason? Is that what you said? Or can you connect theory of change with these results?
If I understood correct, what process tracing does, that's the mechanism of theory change. So it's basically the error. It's not trying to avoid the outcome. That's the error. It's happening.
Yeah. Each element in the photo change.
So it's trying to understand how one thing is from another.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's different than. I don't know if you try to apply some quasi experiment to see the difference.
Yeah.
On beneficiary and not beneficiary.
I have the feeling that it doesn't get kind of fully made.
No, I think you're amazing the law.
Okay, I was not here before, so I don't know, that's why I said therefore. Okay. Yeah. Can I just say one thing about this evaluation? So, because we are here in a training about theory of change, yeah, so the challenge, and this was like, UNICEF wanted to pilot actually this approach, yeah, and we were the lucky ones to be together with them, like, from us too sometimes, yeah. At the beginning, the idea was actually that the focus of the evaluation is actually on these change areas. Yeah, so, and then we have had a lot of discussion because it was a little bit interesting, let's say, to see the discussions we had with UNICEF about the concepts used in the TOR, which we of course answered in our offer, etc. But we had no discussions about like what is result at scale, how do we define it? What is like change, how we kind of presented in one slide the entire process of defining the change areas, because actually in the end, I don't think in some cases we managed to define good change areas. Yeah, but in most cases, the UNICEF country offices wanted to have like really large areas, and then they didn't want to kind of let it go because, of course, they wanted to propose areas in which they booked fantastic results, at least based on their perception on some level they were having. So in the end, we ended up, and in some countries, we committed to do two change areas per country, and some countries we insisted on other change areas. It was a third change area. So the table, and in the end, we kind of ended up with a lot of change areas which were large, yeah. And in order to really do it properly, the theory of change would have a lot of elements, yeah. And to collect evidence, existing evidence and new evidence for each element in this results claim took a lot of resources. So we were very enthusiastic and we wanted to do it because for us it was like one of our, we wanted to do an innovative evaluation and it was very innovative for us. But in the end, the biggest lesson we learned was that we really need to be careful with, on one side, with how far you go in developing the theory of change. And if you know you have resources to actually test the fidelity between 10 elements, then you are either or like in 10 elements and then multiply with 8 areas and 80 elements, then you do not agree, let's say, with having 12 areas with each area with 30 elements in the theory of change. Because if you extend it so much and you don't have the resources, then in the end, it kind of kicks you back because you physically don't have the time. But you also have deadlines to really collect all evidence and analyze it properly and run also the process tracing so that you really can say that you did it, that you are satisfied like as much as possible, maybe it's not 100%, but it's 95%. So this was something And it was very, we like working with UNICEF is because they give a lot of attention to evaluation, to exercise, they are fantastic from this point of view. And it was, but they were also, it was also fantastic the fact that they understood that in the end they asked too much. Yeah, so they saw that we worked twice actually compared to what we committed, what we kind of offered that we would do. But it's this, I mean, this idea of how far you're going in an evaluation, in developing the theory of change, compared to the resources we're having, this is really one of the key issues which we took away from this evaluation. And we are still big fans of theory-based evaluations and all kinds of like methodologies you can use in the framework of this wider, but we are all the time very careful, like, okay, we develop the theory, okay, how far, I mean, do we have actually, if we know how complex the theory of change is, do we have the resource to actually do it properly? Or what kind of strategies we need to actually deploy in order to make sure that our evaluation is of good quality and we respect, all the good quality in the limits of our resources. And another issue which was actually very interesting, at a certain point we were having, for me it was a bit psychedelic, like I'm not having this discussion. I mean, at this point in my career, you were like, okay, we were having but it was so good. It was actually so good. We started having the discussion with UNICEF at a certain point. What does it mean of good quality evidence? Right? Come on, we've been doing evaluation for almost like 15 years now. I mean, for so long we haven't thought about it, anymore, because I mean you're doing it, inspection reports, blah blah. Yeah, you do 5, 10 evaluations per year as a team. I'm looking at Robert and Corinne because they are my colleagues. So I mean, you are not kind of, and you are going a little bit on autopilot, and you are not thinking about it anymore. So how can I say? There is in UK, I don't need to know this, the Alliance for Evidence in UK. I mean, they have like fantastic resources on actually quality of evidence overall. So it was, it was like 2 things which were actually very interesting.
I have a question when I'm done.
I have no,
and I mean, because I mean, it's 2 different. I'm a political scientist, and you are people with practitioners, right? You are probably
some of us, not all of us probably.
so we have different.
So you haven't talked to each other. You don't know each other yet. It's not good.
And when you're writing papers or theses or dissertations, one big thing is to how you select your case, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's like trying to see that you're not cherry picking and stuff. But in your case, you're saying that UNICEF are trying to push some region and how
some areas. When you say areas like topics, let's call them.
okay.
Yeah.
So they're not pushing region, because that was my question.
No.
How you deal with the client when they're trying to push like, oh, let's not wait to this one area. And then you say that maybe you just try picking because they know that they're doing it. Or maybe you don't have this issue because you're evaluating a program that they want to be evaluated, so it's different when we are trying to evaluate a public policy. The government don't want us to evaluate something.
Firstly, in the COR, usually the kind of the scope is defined. Yeah, either the scope is defined in the sense that, for example, now we are doing an evaluation of a problem with 7 priority axes. We evaluate only the first 3, and in the COR it's already written, we evaluated and that, and they have national coverage or not, they have only regional coverage. So yeah, but in terms of case selection, the best thing we can do, and this is what we are trying to do at least, is to have as good as possible case selection. I don't think lately we haven't done this quantitatively, but I did it, for example, in the European Commission. So even using quantitative methods, cluster analysis and stuff like this. So if you have like a good selection based on even if you do it qualitatively based on clear criteria in line with like recognized information with like methodologies, you have arguments to kind of to explain to them this is why you selected the case. There are situations in which we have discussions on this selection, and if, I have never really felt like push. Yeah, what they are bringing their arguments, for example, in our last evaluation of Romania, Hungary, there were discussions, it was like cross-border cooperation program between Romania and Hungary, and we had a selection of cases based on several criteria, one criteria analysis. But they had like some good arguments, something which we couldn't see from the document, yeah, or new cases. And then we analyzed again, and we accepted one of their suggestions, but the second we didn't. I said, we need this because we have an evaluation question on strategic projects, and we need to have a strategic project in the.
So you have some freedom, so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, no, we do not, I mean, if it doesn't respect methodological, like political criteria methodology, we do not accept the client, because then it kind of is fair, I mean, and we don't want to do this, I mean, this is our professional standard.
I think it's not only about the complexity of theory of change, because you add your complex method.
Yeah.
I use tracing because I know I use for evaluation for our students. Yes, we have a project and we have the, let's say, enough time and resources to do it like we want. But you have the pressure of time also. So I think it's important also the methodology that you put in the data collection for theory of change. Because otherwise you can do it with, let's say, less resources of time and money if you use another methodology. Because tracing is not such a simple methodology. It involves a lot of things. It involves to go to specific people and follow them through a period of time. Normally, tracing should be applied after, at least in education, after 18 months after graduation. And we normally in the project, we go in Germany and learn from the centers that do this for the first time at the EU level. And believe me, after 1 month of training, we still are do correct this or not. And really in our project, we put a lot of dimensions in our questionnaire because we want to see that it's important, yes, and this is important, and but if you have the pressure of time and resources, is not such a good thing. So you should be careful what kind of methodology you choose for a theory of change. I think in this case was not the case because the client imposed the methodology, but it's not.
We accept it. Exactly. We want to do it. We will do it. Doesn't matter. We want to do it. So we accepted it. You know, there.
Can I just follow up on what you said? Does this then by design somehow guide you to focus on things that are the most memorable at this moment?
No, not all the time. Not all the time.
And
normally
transformation.
Normally in the methodology, yes, you should focus on what you could measure easily, let's say. But this is the first case when the client accepts it. But normally the client wants to measure some dimensions that are not measurable, let's say, or for these measures you don't have evidence. And it's a struggle to explain them that sometimes you cannot obtain data. This is the, let's say, the most important but the most difficult part, to explain that, yes, I would like to have data for this, but I cannot have in this budget and in this period of time. Of course, every data could be collected, but it depends on the budget and on the time. And if you want quality, if the client asks you about quality, quality doesn't mean that you can have this kind of evaluation in 2 or 3 months. No. Out of question. If they try to tell you that you can do it in this period of time and at a very good quality, you can tell them that no, they can choose another
trainings, I always tell the client, yeah, the beneficiary, that if you want, if you know if you want to have an impact evaluation and you know that it's theory based and you need to have case studies, yeah, maybe not process tracing, case studies, yeah, then you cannot be 6 months. It needs to be longer than 6 months. I mean, absolutely.
You know, there is a lot of discussion between providers and clients when they want this evaluation, because as I explained to you, they proposed me at the beginning that, every time I put this in written, because otherwise this gentleman agreement doesn't work, even with UN agencies. They asked me for an evaluation for training products, and at the end they want an evaluation of the whole product that they provide. Oh, but we consider that. Why? You put this and ask twice about this, and at the end you want something else. So could happen.
Yeah, but maybe coming back to or not coming back to the process tracing. In the moment we really like analyze the methodology and we started working on it. For me, it was like, okay, this is like a quantifiability, yeah. Approach, a method, let's put it, yeah. So in which you are trying to quantify the qualitative evidence in most cases, so that you can, you know, you have your study that's more validity. And but in the end, you as an individual, yeah, you give the score. So you have criteria to judge. Okay, but so I feel it's like in the end it's still subjective. Yeah, this is why actually you ask your first question. So how? I mean, it's still subjective. It's still, yeah. So this was also for me my first reaction when I started to dive into this method. Yeah, and I think it brings definitely brings added value because it's like you collect even more systematically. I mean, when I do a case study, I collect evidence very systematically. I that's one thing. So you maybe more systematically, like more evidence. You analyze the evidence more thoroughly. But a good evaluator could write a case study report with the same conclusion without much thing. We're almost the same, I think. And so far, I mean, this evaluation hasn't come. But of course,
What would be the other ways to arrive at the same conclusions that means that has not substantially contributed to the better with the work?
actually read the report in itself. It's kind of, I think even without applying process tracing and just thinking like the pattern match, which is like the type of analysis, yeah, you're usually doing work, yeah. It's just, I think you would arrive more or less to the same conclusion. So this was a bit my meaning. I haven't, you know, I don't have the counterfactual, so we haven't done it without.
But I'm curious because you're making a choice.
Yeah.
In any use of methods. So kind of what is is it the willingness to expand the methodological toolkit? Or going to
What will we use? Why?
Yes,
Yes.
methods, right?
Yeah.
that we have. Or is it
For us, it's testing more methods to see actually in the end, which is most, in the end, it's most cost effective. You see, because
The
it's
process
not,
tracing is more cost
no,
effective than
no.
and
We tested it, and I don't think it's necessarily cost effective. I think it's yeah. But I mean, this is not the first time that I'm doing body, and then I draw the conclusion that even if we do something, we achieve something very complex, quantitatively, I mean, basically, if we have done it qualitatively, and the result will be more or less the same. But I mean, it's always good to have methodological triangulation, you know?
I mean, usually
Methodological
it's triangulation and additional detail, right? But I'm thinking here, it has levels defined. So in this sense, it's given detail and you could compare maybe more thoroughly on which results.
Yeah, so everything is done more thoroughly. Yeah, really more in detail, more systematic, yeah. But, yeah, so, and you have more confidence in the results. That's definitely a gain, but the difference is not, I mean, it's not like you're getting like radically different results because you apply concentration. It's just like in the research, which is good, yeah. In terms of like but in terms of resource, like cost effectiveness, I guess. I think it's one anyway.
Yeah.
We need to pray for lunch, right?
Yeah.
But before we need to close, right?
Ah.
I have, or like, Mihaela, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mihaela.
Thank you.
So I forgot to ask you something before, and now I'm stressed about
Hi.
it.
I just, yes,
Yeah.
can you hear me? Yes, I just wanted to add one small conclusion and to go back a little bit to the topic that you discussed previously regarding the communication with the commissioner of the evaluation. I remembered what Laura told me some years ago, that the evaluation, besides research and reflection, is also a negotiation process. And you need to be aware of this in order to be able to provide to the commissioner of the evaluation something that is useful for that institution. So I think that is normal to have a continuous communication with the commissioner of the evaluation, with some limitations, of course. This is all from my side.
I was so smart when I was young.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I was so smart when I was young.